Why would someone vote for Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and also vote for Donald Trump? It would seem not to make sense, except if you understand the way that a growing number of Americans, certainly millions, really tens of millions, are voting right now. And that's what we're going to explore. We've talked about various types of split ticket voters. So, for example, there were people, about 100,000 Republicans at last count in Arizona, went to the polls, voted for Donald Trump, and did not vote for Kari Lake. Had those 100,000 Trump voters voted for Kari Lake, she would have won rather than lost her Senate race. So Republicans who said yes to Trump, no to Kari Lake. What's that about? It seems to mostly be about Kari Lake. In Florida, you had people who went to the polls and they said, I'm voting Trump and I'm voting to enshrine abortion rights at the state level, which, because of a 60% threshold in Florida, actually failed to pass, even though it got more than 50% of the vote. That's not the topic today. But you have voters who say, I want there to be abortion rights, but I just don't want what Kamala Harris is offering. I want Trump. And we talked about that on the bonus show as well. We now get to an interesting sort of vignette of AOC voters who also voted for Donald Trump in her district. This is a BuzzFeed article that sort of summarizes the question that AOC asked on her Instagram and some of the responses that she got. And the trends are very, very interesting. So AOC went live on Instagram. She said, I want to know from the people who voted for me, but also for Donald Trump, why did you do it? And some of the replies are interesting. I'll tell you about some of them. These are all quotes that she got in response. It's real simple. Trump and you care for the working class. This is confirmation that populist rhetoric from left and right starts to sound the same, even if the way that they would implement policy around that rhetoric is completely different. AOC has a populist rhetoric about the middle class. Trump has a populist rhetoric about the middle class. AOC's rhetoric seems genuine, whereas Trump seems contrived just to get votes. AOC would solve that issue of the middle class getting screwed, is the word that's often used, differently than Trump would. But the rhetoric is very similar. Okay, another example. Trump is going to get us the money and lets men have a voice. You're brilliant and have amazing passion. Another one, but wanted change. So I went with Trump and blue for the rest of the ballot to put some brakes. The idea being you keep things under control with Republicans and Democrats sharing power. Okay. I feel like Trump and you are both real, said another voter. Voted Trump, but I like you and Bernie. I don't trust either party establishment politicians. The idea being AOC isn't establishment and Trump isn't establishment. Another response, voted for Trump in Arizona, but voted for Dem Rubin instead of Kari Lake because thought he's good handling war. Okay. Another voter, action and progress is better than stagnation and excuses. Both of you, meaning Trump and AOC, push boundaries and force growth. Another one, I feel that you both are outsiders compared to the rest of DC and less establishment. So if you zoom out a little bit, what this really points to, the reason people would go to the ballot and say, okay, whatever my party designation is, forget about that for a moment. I like Trump and I like AOC, even though they couldn't be more different on policy. It points to, it's not really about policy. It's more about who do I believe is the underdog or outsider? Who do I believe has the passion? Who do I believe has my best interests in mind? Who brings the energy that I like? And who is successfully executing, for lack of a better term, the populist rhetoric that is appealing to me right now. It's a combination of populist sentiment, outsider appeal, whether it's real or not, does not matter. That's the critical thing. It's just perception. Outsider appeal, populist sentiment, disillusionment with the traditional party lines. Yes, I'm pro-choice, but I want Trump in Florida, even though traditionally, maybe that would be a more likely Democratic presidential vote. So we're seeing this breakage of party lines as well. And the big themes we're going to talk about later in the show, I might not get to it. We might get to it next week, later in the week. We'll see. But I'm going to talk about the search in the Democratic Party for the heir apparent. And it would be important to properly diagnose the problem in order to carry out that search correctly. And so what we're seeing is authenticity. The perception of authenticity is really important. Voters are saying Trump and AOC seem real and genuine. Carrie Lake doesn't seem real and genuine. Kamala Harris doesn't seem real and genuine, but AOC does and Trump does. Doesn't matter if this stuff is true. I'm not going to repeat it, but with all of these, it's perception. The outsider appeal. Some people see Trump and AOC as outsiders. AOC, maybe because of her, upbringing and bartending history and whatnot. Trump, because he was historically a business person, whether he was good or not doesn't matter, not a politician. They like the idea that Trump and AOC as outsiders challenge the status quo in D.C. It's very, for all the good things about Kamala Harris, you don't get the feeling that she challenges the status quo, that's for sure. Policy priorities, there aren't that many, but there's this generic idea that Trump's policy will be good for the working class and that AOC's policy, to the extent a congressperson has policy, will be good for the working class. Doesn't matter if it's real, but a lot of voters felt most Democrats, including people like Kamala Harris, don't really have the working class as their priority. AOC does and Trump does, and that's why they voted for both of them. Very interesting. Populism in general, as I've said before, populism is a rhetoric. It's not a set of policy ideas. Populist Bernie Sanders and populist Tucker Carlson would have very different solutions to the housing crisis, for example. But they'll both use populist rhetoric when talking about housing. Trump and AOC's approaches are described certainly as populist sounding, and discontent with Democratic leadership. There are people who voted AOC who don't like Democratic leadership because they see her as an outsider to that. And there are people who voted Trump because they don't like Democratic leadership in the context of Harris versus Trump. So those are all important things to keep in mind. It does also seem like people kind of want a celebrity. I don't know. I'm thinking about this now, but I'm just spitballing with you. But to some degree, I kind of think Jon Stewart, if he ran, would do better than a lot of these Democratic politicians, because the country does seem, I'm not saying it's good, but the country seems to have gone in the direction of wanting a big, famous personality in some sense. Maybe it's a bully alpha male type, even if Trump's not really an alpha male, he pretends to be. Maybe it's an attractive woman who speaks in a way that they like. Maybe it's a former host of The Daily Show. I know he's hosting Mondays. So that's very interesting. One other really interesting little note, AOC asked her followers, where do you get your news? And multiple people, she featured them, okay? Multiple people she featured said, David Pakman. This is very cool. So I'm putting this up on the screen. In the left column, the third one down said Destiny, David Pakman, Brian Tyler Cohen, Jon Stewart. And then the fourth one down on the left said ProPublica, The Intercept, David Pakman, Majority Report. So that's super interesting. As you all know, AOC's welcome on the show anytime. And I'd be interested in talking about a lot of this stuff with her. But these split ticket anecdotes, sometimes we say the broader data is what's important. Wow. Latino voters voted more for Trump than in any previous election for another Republican. Broad data. Sometimes we say, let's hear from individuals who made the individual decision. I'm voting Trump and I'm voting AOC. In this case, those anecdotes, very, very interesting. I want to share with you a key part of my daily routine, AG1. In the morning before my coffee, I put a scoop of AG1 in water and get 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, prebiotics, probiotics, all sourced from whole foods. It's an easy, convenient way to just fill nutritional gaps, support my gut for optimal digestion,
AG1's prebiotics, probiotics, and other ingredients can reduce bloating, aid in digestive health long term. Instead of juggling multiple supplements or trying to perfectly plan your meals, AG1 provides a simpler, more cost-effective solution, and its bioavailable formula ensures that your body can absorb and use everything in the powder. AG1 has even been shown in a recent study to double the amount of healthy bacteria in the gut. This promotes long-term digestive comfort. Plus, it tastes great on its own with water, but you can mix it into the drink of your choice. So this holiday season, try AG1 for yourself or even give it as a gift to someone special. All November, AG1 has a Black Friday offer. With your first subscription, you'll get a free gift as well as a welcome kit and a year's supply of vitamin D3 and K2. Go to drinkag1.com/Pacman. The link is in the description.